everybody! Welcome to TPK Roleplay! Happy TPK Con! We've got another amazing panel happening right now. I mean, right now, this is why we're live. We're talking about animals and TTRPGs. So I am leading this panel. My name is Sir Hecla. I am a biologist, certified wildlife rehabilitator, and vet student at NC State. So excited to talk about just. You've heard if you guys are on the channel, you've heard my biologist rambles, and I try to keep it very short to like 1 minute during sessions and stuff. But here's an entire, while talking about them. It is much less restricted. But before I start this ramble, let's go around the horn and talk about all of my guests, who they are, what they do, all that stuff. So let's start with Ty right here.
Hello, I am Tyron. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Dr. Tyron. I am a GM, staff member, player, homebrewer for TPK Roleplay as well as other channels. And I am also, since we're putting credentials and student stuff out there, I am a law student at the University of Idaho. I am excited to talk about how unjust animals are treated in TTRPGs, especially D&D, because if you look at all of the standard animals in D&D, they aren't taken very seriously, and I want to change that. So let's talk about it. Moving on to Chrissy.
Guys, I'm Chrissy. You can call me Chrissy. I'm on social media as @ChrissyCrits everywhere. That's how you can find me. You can find me in the TPK Discord as Chrissy. So I'm a social worker for dropping credentials. Is that what we're doing? Because that's.
I mean, this just applies to what we're talking about. But sure, no. Talk about it. Talk about the amazing stuff that you do, please. Always.
Yeah, so I am also a DM at TPK, GM, gamekeeper, whatever word you would like to use, and a homebrewer as well. And yeah, so that's what I do. What about you, Foxy? What do you do?
Hey guys, it's me. I'm Foxy, aka Big Foxy, aka no longer banned from Twitch Foxy or Twitter Foxy. I'm here still. You can find me on Twitter at Big Foxy. That's BIG_FOXXII. Young Foxy is dead. Big Foxy lives forever. If we're talking credentials, I am a SoundCloud rapper. So yeah, there you go. But honestly, I've been GMing for, I don't know, maybe a decade now. I ran a one-shot on TPK. I also am the creative director of Neon Lights Roleplay, where we play all kinds of different things. I GM 2 campaigns there and some one-shots. I also manage a bunch of other stuff there with more stuff coming. And I'm hyped to just like hype man all of Sir Heck's biological rants and just be like, yeah, you heard that? Important biology facts. That's all I'm here for, mostly, to be honest. I'm here for hype man.
Well, I appreciate it. Once again, I'm Sir Heckla. That's just the catchphrase. I guess, you know what? Before we get into like the bigger questions, let's just go around again and talk about what your favorite animal is. We'll just do that first. It's just kind of an icebreaker kind of thing. Oh no, Chrissy's already shaking her head. I'm so sorry. Oh no. I'll go, like, I don't have like a singular favorite animal. That's very hard to say, but I'll just say one of them is definitely a Brazilian rainbow boa. If you don't know about rainbow boas, the sheen that reflects off of their scales is rainbow, and it's super heckin' cool. But yeah, that's kind of why I do. Let's see which one. We don't have to do this in order. Just if you
reverse order. No.
Okay.
Hey, god damn it. Fine. All right.
What have I done?
My favorite animal is probably this dog I have to let out. Give me 1 second. I'm super sorry. Damn it, small dog, run, go. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm back. Wasn't that fast. Okay. My favorite animal is probably I really dig peregrine falcons. I think they're super cool. Like just
Very good choice.
like dive bombing, like prey kind of thing. That's super cool. But that was a cop out answer to avoid the obvious answer, which is the fennec fox, because they're really cute and have big ears. And yeah, that's kind of it. So there you go. That's the obvious answer. You're welcome, guys.
Okay, so I'm a huge fan of capybaras because I think those creatures are just chill as shit, and I like
are.
aim to be as chill as a capybara. I am aware that it is, I think, and heck, you can correct me, but I do think it's just like a giant oversized rodent of some
It is.
type.
It is the
Yeah,
largest
yeah,
rodent.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so I'm okay with that. Because I just think they're super chill. And then, but I also have a wild, weird child since I was like a little girl. I used to do a lot of research and reading about sea otters. So I have a sea otter thing. It makes it sound weird. Well, I don't know why Ty's shaking his head. I know they're vicious little things. They can be like very vicious. They're not as.
They are the definition of chaotic evil.
Oh, I have loved them for years, and that's probably why.
I think it makes sense, actually, personally.
Thank you.
They are so mean. For me, I have a couple that I want to talk about because I've recently been watching what is it, the Life of Mammals, or whatever the David Attenborough special is about mammals, the 10-part
Yeah,
special.
I'm blanking on the name, but yeah.
First off, there is a species of bat that I don't know exactly what it is, but they don't use like echolocation, but instead their ears are just like twice the size of their heads. And
Yeah,
they,
usually
like,
long-eared
swivel
bats.
their
Yeah.
ears. It's crazy. It's so cool. Also, giant anteaters, because they are essentially just ant farmers, and it's hilarious to me. Because they go in and they eat as much as they can before they get essentially attacked away from these ant colonies, but then just continue on to the next one and the next one and the next one, making sure that the ecosystem like stays alive but is cold enough. And then they just do this all day, every day.
Yeah, they're
and they
ant
sleep.
farmers. It's great.
They sleep 16 hours a day. It's perfect. But my favorite now that I know about them, are the binturongs.
Yes.
Because they smell like popcorn. It's amazing. Their natural smell is just popcorn.
Yeah, that's what their sebaceous oil does. Like, there's no rhyme or reason why. It's just the compound that it's made of.
It's just so good. It's so good. And no, my favorite are not giraffes.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about giraffes in this panel if we don't want to.
Do we not like giraffes? Do we have a problem with giraffes here?
If giraffes have short legs and short necks, then sure. But besides that, no. If there's like you know what'd be cool? Like a giraffe pony.
Wouldn't that just be a pony?
I mean, that's kind of like okapis, which are related to giraffes, but they look like a mixture between giraffes and zebras. They don't have the same patterning at all. They just kind of look like funky zebras. But anyway, before I again go into one of these animals, let's get to the questions that I kind of prepared for this. So the first question is, what is the context in which you guys have most played or designed animals or animal characters? Like, are they the protagonists, like playable characters or races? Are they enemies or friends? Maybe neither. They're just kind of part of the environment, and it's just kind of more of a descriptor. Yeah, just like tell me about your experiences with animals and TTRPGs.
I feel like for me, they're usually a matter of animals for me are usually either like just meant to be like encounters, like spaces for encounters, or there are and by encounter I don't necessarily mean like enemies. They're just kind of like a space where like a scene happens, because like especially when it kind of depends on the sort of I guess the campaign setting. Like I guess I'll use the most recent example for me. Like Seven Sons, the campaign I'm working on, is a campaign built around like the players entering a sort of new land and experiencing all the new wondrous things they've effectively never seen before, and like learning the culture and the ecology here. And so in contexts like that, I find any encounter with an animal to be just like a scene where it's like, oh, well, here's this new thing. How do you want to approach it? And that could be a thing where I base that entirely on the decision I've made around the sort of like the encounter itself. If you're entering a beast's lair, then maybe it's a bit more hostile to you because you're entering into its territory. If you're just encountering one while it's like out hunting or just out, grazing, then that's more of an encounter where you can just like stand and observe it, maybe learn more info about it. And so I always treat animals as just like really good spaces to have just open encounters where you don't have to either force role play or force combat, but just sort of present something and let the players decide what makes the most sense to them.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, like at least in my experience now that I've like written more, I feel like I've most designed animals for being protagonists actually, and the most recent being the Icterate Invasion, a supplement that I wrote for Corvid Court, written by Spencer Campbell, Gila RPGs, big shout out. Yeah, like I don't know, there's not a whole lot of that in the space. I mean, there are a lot of individual games, but they're usually very self-contained. So I don't know. I just add a little bit more out there. In terms of like D&D and stuff, I do like a lot of reskinning of things. Honestly, usually there's a stat block that works for me, and I just kind of change the aesthetic of it to match an environment that I am adding this creature to for the most part. Um, but I know Ty has been doing a lot of stuff of just like taking from scratch. So, Ty, what do you think about creating creatures kind of from scratch with that?
Oh man, doing anything from scratch is going to be more difficult than reskinning something. Even if you have an idea for this wildly crazy thing, right? It's still going to be easier to reskin something for that purpose. Um, in terms of doing something completely from scratch, I've only done it a few times, but honestly, doing it for some of the animals I've created for Wrath of the Many, specifically the Delphamander, which is one that I created in conjunction with you, Hack. Um, and the bloat tusk was essentially that was a reskin, right? That was pretty easy because it was just I just adding a couple things onto an already pre-existing animal, or but then creating the Aviva, which was a completely kind of crowdsourced thing throughout the entire cast. This flying air elemental esque, huge sized bear cat, Bentarong. That was something that was like, well, I don't have anything to really compare this to. So.
Nope, not at all. They're very,
Well, you
very
did.
unique.
To be fair, you could compare it to Appa from
Sure,
Avatar,
yes.
That's what
but
we
he
ended
doesn't
up
have a
doing.
stat block unless you probably buy that supplement.
Yes, yes, and that's something that I did want to bring up is that, in terms of creating animals, specifically beasts, it is kind of difficult to do so at higher levels in D&D because, and I have the compendium of beasts pulled up in D&D Beyond right now, and there are 10 pages of beasts, which is great. I mean, that's a lot more than some other monster types. However, 8 of those pages are CR3 and below.
It's like I think the highest CR is like 8, right? It's like it's the
Yeah,
T-Rex.
the highest CR is a T-Rex.
Yeah.
And that's just the standard T-Rex, right? because like, and this is something I'll get into, but there is one other thing that's higher than a T-Rex, but it is actually an archmage that was true polymorphed into an otter.
Oh my god.
That's in there. So it's an otter that's an 18th level spellcaster.
I love that. I actually really love that.
Which is hilarious. Also, like that. Why is that in here?
Because it's amazing.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
What a
I need
concept.
that in my life.
Yeah, a lot of 5e D&D monsters, beasts specifically, are like representations of what we see in the real world. And whenever we stray from that, it becomes a different type of monster. So let's say there's a T-Rex, but it's like the bigger, better version of a T-Rex. Like if you've seen the new Jurassic World movie, like, it's all been, hybrided and all of this, that would be considered a monstrosity instead of a beast. So there's not a lot of wiggle room in, raw, right, for creating beasts. But when you're homebrewing this completely unique monster, doing it from scratch is not very easy because you don't have a lot of things to kind of make that reference off of.
Yeah. So at least you have to know a lot about physical adaptations within a certain realm of biology that you're going to go in, that you want to go into. Like the amount that I've learned from my ornithology class that I've been taking over this summer could like absolutely help me just like probably make something from scratch, just based on the amount of pieces that I can take from different things about the different anatomy or social behaviors, things like that. I could probably piece a lot of stuff together from those chapters, but it would still take a lot of time, even with all of that knowledge, for sure. But yeah. Chrissy, what do you think? I know that you play Ulta, who is a swarm keeper ranger, so that's a really big part of like her character and animal interactions and stuff. I know you're a big fan of Mouse Ritter, which hasn't been played on TPK, but that is a whole other game about you are a mouse. It's basically Despero, but a TTRPG. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
So, the context that I probably have animals most prevalent in games is I use them as playable characters. I am a big fan of, especially, well, I won't say especially, because across the board I think it's pretty relevant. But like at TPK, I think it's one of my favorite things to do is when we're doing one-shots or we're doing whatever, to kind of jump outside of the realm of regular humanoid-styled creatures to be the playable characters. So I'm constantly usually DMing whoever is the game master and being like, hey, are you cool with me pulling in some Humblewood? Or these random weird little homebrew characters that I'm finding on D&D Beyond, or can I do this weird thing? Because I think that it adds, for me, I think that it adds a level of more antagonistic, like not necessarily super helpful in the way that your teammates probably want them to be. For example, I'll use the last Zorpies. So Zorpies is across the board a pretty goofy game, so like we don't need super serious characters. But I played a Grung who spoke no language. So like there was no way that they could have been probably helpful to any capacity, but ended up dealing out a whole bunch of like damage and like was there to like be a kind of like I want to say like a support class fighter, but like they weren't going to be able to like help the story move along much in a normal sense. So I do kind of catch myself playing characters like that. Another example is Strix. She's my barn owl. I don't even remember what class she was. I think a cleric. I can't remember.
Something that has conjure chair. That's like what I took from that.
Yeah. So who says like only like one word the whole game and like you know what I mean? Or I tend to do that because I think it adds like a different layer to gameplay. And for campaign wise, I think it would be one of those fun things to have in a game where it's like, people can chastise me if they want, but I'm gonna drop the big name Critical Role, doing that with the little Kenku mimicky bird,
Mm-hmm.
where they like
Silly.
had this NPC mimic bird. Well, it wasn't a mimic; it was like the bird mimicked them, but ended up becoming like a pretty intricate part of the story, but growing along with them. I think that that's really interesting. So that's usually how I have animals in my games. And I'm not gonna lie, in D&D, when I'm running D&D games, a lot of my animals are just, oh, you need a horse or you need some sort of creature to get from point A to point B. Well, let's give you something interesting and fun rather than just, I'll give you just a steed, you know?
So I want to know, everyone, when is the last time you've seen a horse in a D&D game?
Probably the last time we had Queen's Gambit, Tyranny of Dragons. Yeah, because it's we're in a big travel heavy portion of the campaign right now.
Yeah.
So, and we don't have really access to fast transport yet, at the level that we are.
Right.
So yeah, in very travel heavy campaigns, I could see it being more common, but yeah, outside of that, not a whole lot. Like, you don't see that.
A lot.
Yeah, it's like, I'm trying to think of the other campaigns we have right now. There really aren't that many. But yeah, or at least like, in our Queen's Gambit Tyranny of Dragons campaign, I play a druid, and this is the first time I played druid for a prolonged period of time outside of, one shots. And yeah, just the number of creatures that I've been able to wild shape into, it's just like, wow, okay, like, there is a lot of diversity here, but like, I'm again very glad that I maintain the mental stats of the druid, because a lot of the time the mental stats of these creatures are not very high. Which, yeah, I think we'll actually get to that individual rant later. I think that fits with a later question, but yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about that because yeah, Direxolitha made a very good point in chat about that. But yes, we will talk about it. But kind of going off the original question, are there like one or more of these categories that like you want to see more of in the space, like more games with animal protagonists, or like we've already talked about wanting a little bit more beast options because there aren't a lot in D&D. But anything to that effect, anything you want to see more of in TTRPGs?
I would love to see them past just transport.
Mm-hmm.
But that's
Yeah,
why
sure.
I choose to play animals a lot, is because I think that creatures and things like that are so they can add like such an interesting dynamic to a group, because then you have to add in like, oh well, how am I going to talk to this thing, how am I going to, and I'm saying thing as in like, because I don't know what we would be talking to,
Exactly.
like, how am I going to like have a conversation with it, like what are we going to do, we have to be mindful of. And I would like to see them in less of, because I know for myself as a GM and DM, I use animals a lot just as silent creatures in the background of like, oh well, a task needs to get done, so I'll give you a war horse and they'll pull the cart to take you from A to B, which isn't a bad thing. It's a necessary task, but also it's like, there's a game out there that I played where like we had to talk to a talking horse. I can't remember what it was. It was like a one shot, and it wasn't on TPK. It was just a one shot. But we all had to talk to this like talking horse. The horse was like fully sentient to a degree of like speaking common, and I was like, I love this, because like, you know what I mean. Like they're like, go find this NPC. Go find this person with this name, and we're all looking for a human, and here it's like this horse, and I'm like, this is phenomenal, because it was like such a change. Like, we're used to going to talk to barkeeps and humanoids, and it's like, oh no, go talk to the horse in the stable. And it was like, oh, cool.
Exactly, and yeah, just like, I really like that twist on it, because a lot of the time, like, then the next thing I kind of thought of was, yeah, a lot of the time speech then gets delegated to monstrosities, or, even like I'm thinking of unicorns, which I think might be celestials. Actually, they're classified as something else. But yeah, like animalistic kind of celestials, monstrosities, etc. They get that kind of extra layer of language after that. So I'm not really sure why that isn't capable for some beasts. But I really like the twist on that, for sure. Any other thoughts?
I want to see more legendary beasts. You know, like the legend of the this like giant bear that you know is up in this cave and like watches over the Dominion and you know has won so many battles that it's all scarred and like legends of these really cool monsters, right? Like I guess we can classify it as let's say creature because it's you know it could not be a monster. Monster's kind of a bad term to use, but like these legendary creatures that could be put into your world that could be you know just like a CR10 bear that's been beefed up a bit and been given like the ability to like empathize with your party and like you know we see a lot of lore that has these animals that are these wise creatures or these powerful creatures, but when we take a step back and we look at that in a fantasy setting, most of the time animals are kind of just thrown at parties as cannon fodder. So it'd be nice to see some animals that can actually contend with some, you know, second and third tier players. Would be really cool.
Exactly. Not a lot of things, just to add to this, not a lot of things even like really make the differentiation of behavior. It's just like, in what world would a pack of wolves under no influence just like go for this traveling group of people? Like, that does not happen often. Really, any real world scenario setting is like, yeah, you could argue like with Strahd's wolves, like they're obviously under his control, so there's kind of an influence there. Or the first thing I thought of was Wolves of Welton, being another one-shot module. It's like, okay, well, they were under the influence of these like kind of elemental wolf being. So okay, that kind of makes sense. But yeah, in like other settings, like yeah, there's so many bases that just don't make sense for it.
And I think if you are going to use animals as your kind of random encounters and stuff like that, you need to make it a little more realistic in how these animals behave. When you are like traveling along the road, a bear is not going to just rush out at you and attack you for no reason. But if you stumble across a clearing and there's you know a couple bear cubs in the middle of this clearing, you best go away.
Yeah, like it's the name of the game is provocation at that point. Yeah. Like absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like one thing I want to see more in like when it comes to TTRPGs and animals is I want to see more space for animal companions outside of your typical like ranger classes. Like the typical like trope of like, you know, the archer or like the ranged character who has like the you know like the well-worn wild person who has like, you know, the animal companion is like, that's a super fun trope to ride and everyone likes that character, but like why can't my cleric have like an animal companion I've had since like I was a kid, you know? Why can't my barbarian have, you know, a bear I've been training with for a long time who's like stuck around with me, you know? I just like that seems to be a thing I want more of, and like sure there are options for it, but that runs to the second part of the thing that I want, which kind of goes into what Ty was saying. Of I actually ran into this problem recently where one of my players in Seven Sons, Lucian, is playing a lizard folk who has a giant lizard as his companion, and the rules for animal companions are kind of wash. Like from like how high of a CR you can take at base level, like even at 5th level. I have my players start at 5th level, and like, you know, the limit of like CR like 1 or 2, like you really didn't have some great options. You can't take a large creature; they have to be medium or smaller. And I'm like, why? And like that, like I broke that rule already for him. Like, sure, you can have giant lizard for your pet. I don't care. That's fine. I have no problem with that.
Let's talk about this, all right? Because the animal companion subclass for rangers,
Yeah, Beastmasters, so bad. So
I
bad.
I have some problems with it because to me, your animal companion needs to level with you.
Exactly. Yes.
And in a way that is
every
measurably good. Yeah.
It is every other thing you have to like any MMO you can name that has that concept where like you get like hunters in World of Warcraft or any other thing, your pet levels with you, and even if you get multiple pets, they all level with you. I don't.
Yeah.
Like I ran into that recently. Actually, that was the second part of my problem. Is like Ploy, our lizard folk hunter, has a giant lizard for his pet. And even though I broke the rules for CR on the biggest pet you can have, he's now level 8. He's gained like some more health, some better stuff. His giant lizard is still just that basic CR3 or whatever giant lizard. He still has 33 health. He has the same basic damage on his attacks. He doesn't get any other strength or anything. And now I want to come up with a system that makes him level up with, Ploy, because like the way he RPs them isn't just like, oh, here's this lizard I have next to me. It's like his best friend. Like, so why would I deny them the experience of like growing together as characters? That feels like I feel stunted as a GM in what I can offer him in that instance. Whereas like I can either give you a better beast or just like make up some stuff. I don't know. Like
I can say playing a ranger swarm keeper ranger, that each time I level, the swarm changes and gets better. But the swarm as written in D&D is supposed to be insects or bugs, and I just have a cool DM in Tyranny who allows it to be different than that. So like it doesn't have its own stat block.
Yeah.
Like my swarm is not a separate entity of myself. It is fully me as the player. So like it still has its like, well, what the fucks? You know what I mean? Like why is that? But like the fact that it can get better and stronger as I get better and stronger was a huge reason why I wanted to take it so badly.
Of course.
I was like, oh yeah, like once I hit level whatever, the damage that it can dole out increases, it gets bigger, it can push things back further. Like I was like, oh yeah, I want that. Like that's really cool because it's like having a familiar, but a familiar who can do damage and do things for you that's like relevant and helpful.
Yeah.
But it also has a lot of like things you have to break to make it relevant and helpful. Like
exactly.
For my character, it would not have been relevant to have a bunch of, crickets around her. Except for to eat them because she's a lizard. Like, it wouldn't have been helpful.
Exactly.
Like she would have just been like,
food source.
Yeah, she would have just been like round and like not tall, and like you know what I mean. She's sort of been endlessly eating. So like I when I talked to Magic about that, I was like, hey, like, is it okay if that I change just the vision of them? I'm not asking for any change. He was like, do whatever you want. Like I think that's cool as hell.
And that's the thing that I do like as a GM, period. And like Sarhak definitely knows this. Someone's like played as a player at my table is like, when it comes to anything that's like mostly aesthetic or like a character choice, whether it's like how a thing looks or even something as far as like Lucian wanted to play a lizard folk who had a giant lizard for like his he wanted that like that. He wanted like a best friend he could like ride around on and throw javelins from. And so when it comes to things like that, I am never going to care about what the rules say there as a GM. I'm not, because that's the most important thing here is like the story we're telling here. And even when it comes to this point where it's like, even now where it's like, okay, I have to come up with a mechanic that makes this giant lizard level up with Ploy. I'm doing that with irregardless of what rules it breaks, because the most important thing is the story he wants to tell. And if the story is the story of this giant lizard that like levels up with him and grows to become like his better companion, his trusted friend, I can't deny that to him. Like,
but also, just kind of going back to the animal factor here, it's like also giving that companion a chance to even like act in combat, like at all. Because it makes no sense.
In this fight, like in the last fight we had with the big giant, like the giant thing they just fought, I felt so bad in that like Net, like his giant lizard kind of just ran away for the whole fight because he like got one shot basically. I felt horrible about that because in session there was nothing I could do other than just like not target him or hit him, which would honestly just feel even more bad because at that point I'm treating him like he's not a threat, which is there's nothing I could do there, I hated that.
A couple things I want to bring up. One, animal companionship should be a feat that you can
agree.
pick up.
I like that.
Two, the ranger subclass Beastmaster needs to be completely reworked, which is
Absolutely.
unfortunate because like the Ranger subclass has needed to be reworked so many times. But that specifically, like if you were going to make an entire subclass based around your bond with this animal, two things need to happen. One, you need to give that subclass more connectivity with the animal, whether that be the like more ability to like, hey, you can use this animal to like see through their eyes at some point, like you can with a familiar. Because if this beast bond is going to be so strong that it's the entire basis of a subclass, I feel like you should be able to like use it as the at least the first level find familiar spell. Like you should have some of those capabilities, but I would also say part of the entire class should be at a certain level. You get the mounted combatant feat just as a thing that you get, because mountain combatant feat isn't used at all
Ever. And that was mentioned in
ever.
chat. Thank you,
Yeah.
Draconis Luna. Thank you.
But also, I think it'd be really cool if, and it's not going to happen with standard content, because it's very apparent that Wizards of the Coast and like everyone that makes like standard D&D content doesn't give a fuck about beasts. So if we're going to make animal companions and beasts a lot cooler, it'd be really cool if we could have like, okay, here are, and this is and just from the beginning, here are 5 beasts that are most commonly used as animal companions. At each level that a ranger levels up at certain thresholds, this beast becomes an improved version, becomes an improved version, and becomes an improved version. And you can just find homebrew monsters, homebrew beasts that are basically improved versions of that.
So a supplement that and I'll talk about this a little bit, but I actually want to like make sure I leave space for like everyone else to like weigh in on different things, because I don't want to take too much space. But I'll just like cursory mention this. A supplement that I played recently, which it kind of honestly reworks D&D 5e from the ground up entirely, so it can't really be compared flat out. The Naruto supplement we played through recently, summoning jutsu is just that. It's a default jutsu like any character can take. You can like jutsu are just like spells, and every character has them. So you can just take summoning jutsu, but like even beyond that, there's an entire subsection in the book called summoning jutsu, which goes through like one, all the specific rules and clarity that go about having a contract. It specifies like this is not a beast under your control. This is not something you just have. You have to sign a contract with it. You have to set up there's an important bond. You can only have one contract at a time. Like it specifies specifically that, and then all the pages follow and detail all the different like clans that they were, boars, bears, rabbits, lions, things, and they have like a base stat block, what kind of jutsu they can use, and things like that. But because it's a jutsu with ranks, what rank you use the jutsu at determines like what level of beast you're summoning. So if you use it at a higher rank, it just says like take the base stat block, and for each rank up, add like you have like 6 or certain number of points to add more stats to it, and then you get better jutsu and stuff too. So like it's the kind of effect where like it feels almost like a better animal companion, even though it's like a more like mythical thing where it's like a summon animal can like talk to you directly. But like even through that, just like when I built my summons for my character, I didn't just feel like, oh, I have some rabbits I can summon. Like I was like, oh wow, these guys they have their own jutsu, they have their own chakra and HP, they have their own stats. I kind of felt like I had to make them fully fledged characters. I had to give them names and personalities. So like that's a supplement where like it's a completely separate mechanic, obviously, but like just the way it treats that mechanic, I think is something that I think core D&D should look at more. Where I think if you're going to look, you're saying your idea of like it being a feat, that feat should have a whole section where it says, yeah, again, here are the most common animals, here are the stats that they have, and whenever you're like at higher levels, you just add this many more extra points for stats to them, and you get like make them matter more. That's all I got to say about that.
I do want to comment because I think Purple talked about it, and it's the reason that I took the Ranger class. So, and when we were making our characters for Tyranny, everyone was like, "Ooh, you're really gonna play a Ranger? That class is so garbage." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm aware, but Tasha's changes a lot of stuff with it. So, if you are interested in playing a D&D Ranger, I do appreciate the changes that happened because they do focus on the changes to the animal companions in the different ways. It's just if you don't have access to that content, you don't get it when you're setting things up in D&D Beyond and stuff like that. So
Exactly.
I mean, it like that's the unfortunate bit is that with with D&D, you're paying $50 for a book to get access um to the new
Mm-hmm.
and improved
Yeah.
version.
Or this
But and it, you know, it can get expensive, but
yeah,
that's why I picked it.
Or I will actually point people towards another resource that was sent to me by a Turk, actually. He found this on some Reddit thread or something, but someone actually made a whole like homebrew class that is very similar to Ranger, but is not about like the hunt or anything about that. It's called the Zoologist. And it's very similar to Ranger, but it's very much like non-harming animals, and it has its own subclasses and stuff. The one that I looked at the most was the veterinarian, obviously. And it just has its own bonuses. Like, yeah, you get an animal companion. If you use healing spells on your animal companion, it is automatic maximum HP healed, which is really cool. And just stuff like that. Like, I'll have to find it again so I can link it in TPK show discussions and all of that. But as a fantastic resource, as very much for free, if you have a cool GM that will let you play a zoologist, because the other subclasses are really cool too. Like there's one specifically about trapping. Again, non-harming, just trapping for research purposes and all of that, which is really cool. Again, like stuff that I did in like my field zoology class 2 years ago. It was great. But yeah, this actually takes me to one of the questions that I had later in the doc, but we can just kind of jump to it because I think this is a good segue. How do you all approach animal domestication and handling in TTRPGs? Because, inevitably there is going to be a player or a character that you have in a campaign that is like, I see this bear or I see this thing in front of me. I want to make it my pet. And it's like, well, okay, the standard approach is roll a singular animal handling check. And, okay, let's see the results of that, if it's good or bad. What are the thoughts on that? Because I have them, but I want to hear you guys first.
Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm looking at time myself because I'm like, I remember this. I remember this very well. Go ahead, Foxy.
I'm going to talk about Durga now. So, my campaign I'm running, Seven Sons, I wanted to do a fun twist on airships. So airships in this setting aren't just like big ships constructions. They are a species of animal called bloat whale. They're large whale-like creatures who have these sacs of air they use to float around that have like saddle big constructions built on their back to like hold people and cargo and things like that. Basically, I just wanted them to be a fun sort of transport thing, mostly in my world. And then when I put my players all in one, when they got arrested, they immediately broke out and were like, "You can't give us sky ships and not expect us to become sky pirates." So I was like, "Okay." I have to give them the skyship now. And I came across this problem where I was like, well, the bloat ships aren't just like constructions, they're creatures, and I want like this to matter more. And so I put some time into thinking about like what this bloat whale, this ship they would acquire at some point would be like. And I got very lucky in that I have a character, Lucian again, who plays I have a player who plays a character who communes with beasts. He speaks with beasts. And we talk a lot about like the ways we don't really like Beastmaster too much and ways we want to change it some. And he said like, hey, could I have a thing where like I could take us check to like I'll take the whole like one animal handling check, but like can I have that just like cast speak with beasts as a free action as opposed to like just like taming it? And I was like, yes, I love this because that's not just like you roll, cool, it's yours now. That's you roll and now you can talk to it.
Yeah, like a conversation. That's the important part there, to be able to communicate.
And that made me care so much more about this this bloat whale where I got to have a moment last session. And I hate to like self promo, I guess, here, but like please, if you get the moment, check out last session of Seven Sons. If anything, there's a lot of great moments, but the one where Ploy sits and like communes with Durga, like the giant bloat whale that is the ship that they're on, and they have a conversation, and it's just such a really beautiful moment. I feel like the two of us had, me and the player, were like this, this man who's a bit timid, a bit unsure of his purpose, meets this ancient creature who has seen so much and has this very, very simplistic view of the world from their like advanced position, being up in the sky for all these years. And they commune and talk, and it's not just like, hey, can I be in control of you? It's, hi, can I understand you for a moment? And I felt like that was such a beautiful moment that I want more of that. Like I want more of like moments where where handling or domesticating an animal isn't just like you said, like roll a check and that's it. It's like you have to actually put the effort in to understand this creature, whether that's like studying it and like trying to like calm it down and appease it, or like physically, because we play games that involve magic and supernatural things, having them talk to or commune with or meditate with, or maybe they find a local druid. The druid does some ceremony where you can speak horse for an hour, and that's how you have to tame your horse or whatever. I don't know, something like that, where you put more effort into it than just like I rolled a check and I rolled high. Cool, I have this.
Yeah,
beast now.
at least the solution that I have, I'll just jump in because mine is kind of a similar approach, except just so it doesn't require like the magical resources in order to converse necessarily. It certainly helps, but what I do is more of a like larger scale skill challenge of yeah, if you can talk to this thing, great, but also just having it takes a lot of knowledge about the behavior and how to interact with a wild animal responsibly and all of that. Like it's more of a tiered skill challenge that gets harder and harder as you go along. Like not just a singular one animal handling check or one even ability. Like knowing about the natural history of this creature that you are trying to interact with could be a history check. That would be more intelligence. Or if you do have speak with animals, I am going to require a persuasion. Or if you don't have speak with animals but are trying to like offer food as kind of like a gaining trust, okay, maybe that could be a persuasion. Just things like that, just something that isn't a singular check, and also to the player's benefit, because it doesn't matter how good you are at animal handling. You could have a +10, but if a natural 1 happens, like that, it's done and done. Or it's like doesn't matter how bad you are at it, if you get a natural 20, it's done and done. That doesn't seem fair to really either side. Like at best.
Could I raise a question to Chrissy specifically,
Yeah.
actually? Because I know like you talk about this a lot, and like your background with like social work and like therapy in terms of like like TTRPGs. I recently, in actually after a talk that we had following a certain moment that happened in a game together with us, I recently made the call to not only remove the idea of like players casting charm on each other and anything like that. I also don't let my players cast command animal on animals that I'm like taking the role of, because like as a GM, I'm still a player, and if I'm like controlling, like acting as a certain animal, you like saying I'm gonna command this thing kind of takes that agency away from me, you know. And I mean, I guess like when it comes to like NPCs, like like bad guys or like like monsters, like like or like bandits they're fighting, I guess I can sometimes be okay with that because like you're in combat, you're fighting, but like I don't like letting my players randomly command, I don't know, the horse they found in town, or like the
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm super interested in hearing ties, but I am going to go on a little like mini rant about this because I have a lot of really strong feelings about animal handling and domestication of animals, and it's probably why I play a lot of weird animal characters because I'm like, no, fuck that. You're not the boss of me. So okay, couple things to touch on what Foxy asked. Yeah, so I think that a lot of those spells can sometimes be very problematic in D&D because it does take away a lot of that autonomy and that personality and like a person's ability to choose. So like I'm not a fan of them. I would rather do those skill checks, kind of like Heck was talking about, like give me consistent regular skill checks, and they're probably the difficulty's either going to increase or decrease according to what creature it is, what's happening, what your skills and abilities are, and the whole 9 yards. One of the things that I do in my therapeutic games, which is probably kind of torturous, and now that I'm saying it out loud, I should probably change it, but I do ask my players, and sometimes I do this in regular campaigns as well, is I ask my characters at the beginning in our session 0, I need a name of one person in your life that you care about and you love. Just one single name, just a first name. And I will name their mount that name because it then pulls in an emotional attachment to that creature and will make them more aware of their behavior towards that creature. Like, oh, you're going to name this creature after your great aunt Sue, who was very sweet to you and was like a mother, mother figure. okay, well, here's your steed. Its name is Sue.
Aw.
Welcome to it. Now you have to remember to take care of it. Because that's the other part of animals that I think gets kind of fallen by the wayside in a lot of games, is like, hey, this is a creature and a thing. You need to feed it and take care of it. And I make a point to do that. You know, like, I'll use Ulta as an example. Like, I regularly make a point to be like, I'm going to attempt to feed my swarm, even though they are Fey-based and they don't eat. I'm going to try to actively come up with a language to communicate with this mini dragon that I have. I make a point because I think that it's important to give those creatures, those beasts, those whatever, they don't necessarily have to have like a verbal voice to be able to have a part in the story. So it's like, okay, well, I'm going to make this personal for me.
Right.
And that's what I do for my characters and my players, is I make it personal for them. Like, oh, there's going to be something that draws you in emotionally to this thing, whatever this thing is, whether it's a little fake companion or it's a mount that you have, whatever it is. I need you to care about it, because, you know, and even Purple in chat just said, like, and then they get eaten by a dragon. Well, yeah, then you'll know not to maybe drag them up the side of a mountain when you're about to go into a cave.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you'll find somewhere to put them, or find a good farmer who will help take care of them, and that will involve you more in the story. So it's like, well, now I'm going to make you like think about your actions a little bit, like, because yeah, you might lose this wonderful creature that you've named, that I've named, now that I've said it out loud, that I've named after someone you care about, right? Because like, they're just not there to do a task. They're part of the story. They're part of the narrative, and sometimes they're very important parts of that. So that's usually what I do. I mean, I'm not a big fan of a lot of those spells across the board. I mean, that's just me, but also I think as GMs and DMs, like, we also have a say in what happens to the things that we're giving. You know what I mean? Like, giving to people. And I don't know, like, I'm not a professional with animals, but I feel like it's more than just, and I'm trying to do this in Tyranny of Dragons, where like, it's not just one day I get a tiny mini dragon in my pocket. Like, this is going to take some time for me, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and at one point I'm probably going to make it mad or upset it somehow, and then I'm going to have to figure out a way to like work that out, because it's an animal. I can't just speak to it. So you got to like put time and effort into it. So that's my take. But I want to know Ty's, because
Yeah.
as soon as we said this, his eyes lit up, and I was like, yes, I love this.
So I want to talk about how we should 100% every time we are investing time into a new animal companion or mount, we need to stop the fuck what we're doing, and we need to focus on that scene. So many times do GMs or players rush through those scenes because they're so invested in the travel and where they're going. But when you stop and you think, okay, you're getting a new mount, you're getting a new animal companion. Let's stick with mount, because mount is a little easier for me to explain. When you're getting a new mount, to me, what's going to happen is I'm going to do what Matthew Mercer does with mounts. For those of you who haven't seen it, in the central art part of Campaign to a Critical Role, the group were given moorbounders, these like panther-like giant, these huge panther-like creatures. And these creatures, these beasts, were unfamiliar with the party. They were given to the party paid for them, and they were just given to them. And what happened was, these wild animals were not easy to control. There had to be a sort of bond, trust formed. And that was even talked about in the purchase of these animals.
Exactly.
The entire purchase of these beasts was prefaced with hey, you can make this purchase. Before you go off, we first need to introduce you to the animal and start to build this trust.
Right.
And if this trust is not formed, at least a seed of trust formed, you can take the animal, but it's probably going to try to eat you because they were carnivorous beings. And eventually, like, they were able to build this trust, but at that point, it's not an all-in scenario. You still, like, you become amicable,
Right.
but you don't have control over this creature. This is where animal companions comes in. When you claim to have an animal companion, such as with a Beastmaster Ranger, this is you saying that this creature, whatever it is, you have spent your years and years being with this creature and building a relationship with it to the point that it has complete and utter trust in you, and you have complete and utter trust in it. And so when you boil it down to this is an animal, and as you grow, this animal is staying the exact same, that's diminishing to that bond that you have claimed you have with this creature.
Exactly.
And so that is why I get so fired up about beasts not having better versions of themselves or being given the ability to level up or anything like that, because when you are throwing them in, if you're a level 20, if you have gone through all of the adventure and all of the experience to get to level 20, and your animal companion is exactly the same as it was in the very beginning of the campaign, that's just not realistic in any sense.
Yeah, at all. Actually, sorry, go ahead.
The point is, and this was done in with the Moorbounders, is it's all about tiers of trust in terms of training or becoming more comfortable with animals. And you know how that was exemplified in Critical Role is you were able to use these creatures as mounts after a lot of intensive care and training. If you want them to do anything else, including stay, like stay around you and not go off and do whatever the fuck they want, you need to train them more. If you want them to be able to help you in combat, you need to train them more. If you want them to jump over obstacles, you need to train them more.
Right.
Because you can't just pick up a random wild horse on the side of the road, hop on it, and be like, let's go to the next town. You're going to get bucked the fuck off.
Exactly.
So,
and yeah, it's just because we do need to segue a little bit and go on a little bit more than just 2 points. I'll just kind of give my final word on this. Yeah, like, and the way I worded this question, oh my goodness. Thank you for the bits. I think those were bits. I just got the notification in my ear. Yeah, the difference, or at least for the question, I, said domestication more as like a general audience kind of terminology, but at least in the terminology of wildlife rehab, if we have a non-releasable animal that is kept for educational purposes most of the time, that kind of thing, or at least like for bald eagles and stuff, it's a whole legal tape kind of thing. We call that habituation. They eventually get more used to just having humans around. Sometimes they'll let you handle them, not always. But yeah, habituation, big difference between there. And I think, yeah, like a lot of this, ranger companion thing is more habituation. They are fine being around you, and yeah, you're making a bond with them, and eventually you train them to do things. And yeah, like the amount of things that you can train raptors to do is so cool. But yeah, you have to make that foundation first that builds up, and the fact that it is put into a singular check is not okay in my book. I will not allow that at my table. But also, yeah, this is kind of where I wanted to put in my point on the mental stats of animals being bottom level. It's just like, okay, so you mean to tell me this creature that just convinced you with its cuteness, that, so much that you want to be around it, forever and keep it. You're trying to tell me that it has a -4 to charisma? Like, are you sure about that? Are you sure? Like, I don't know. I think that starts to go back into design, at least. So that was kind of where I wanted to go next with when designing or playing animals in TTRPGs. What do you guys try to kind of focus on more and build off of? Like, do you talk more about the anatomy first and then kind of work on behavior off of what that structure is, or do you start more with like, okay, what do I want this animal to have the ability to do, and start more with physiology or natural history? What do you guys kind of build off of from there?
I'm gonna go first because I don't have a ton to share about this. Because I don't think that I've ever created a stat block for a creature, right? Like, or for a critter, or for a beastling, or anything like that. I don't think I've ever, like, sat down and been like, oh, they're gonna have, like you said, a -4 charisma, or whatever. Um, what I do with playable characters, though, is that, like, I have a lot of conversations with GMs and DMs when I'm like, hey, I'm gonna play this tiny little, I'm gonna play a grung who doesn't speak. Well, not really, because that was a one shot that was kind of silly. But like when we did Zeke Gonzalez's play test, right? Like when we did that one, it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna play this like little creature. And then I verbally said, I think out loud, I think in the chat, like in the group message, where I was like, he's going to like needs a companion to like be with him, because I'm going to make sure statistically, like his stats are going to be high in this area and low in this area. So he's going to need like somebody to probably like translate for him, or he's gonna need to think that he's like doing something very helpful. And Ty was really great, was like, oh yeah, you can like follow my guy around, he's not gonna be super interested in him, but like, yeah, totally, for sure. I'm like, Strix will think she's his bodyguard, and it'll be fine, but I just need you to know that like mentally he's not going to be the most helpful character. So I'm like super open about when I play these characters, like what I'm trying to accomplish with them, because I do think to some degree, like you said, when we're talking about, oh, we found this adoptable, but they have a -4 charisma, and for some reason we're all like head over heels in love with them, it doesn't make sense, right? Like, so I try to make the stats match the personality that I'm going for. And if it's going to be a very adorable, cute little thing, she's going to be very cute and adorable, but probably not the smartest. Because that's going to be like the least important thing for her. Because
Right.
you know what I mean? Like according to what the class and what the goal is. So I try to make them seem appropriate. That being said, and I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do this probably for the whole game, but I'm going to go back to Ulta a lot, and Magic, and his like amazing DMing skills, and like his ability to just be like, okay, well, this is relevant to Ulta as this creature. Like, you don't have to worry about your stats. Like, she as a kobold, this is relevant to her. And I'm like, thank you. Because like my intelligence, because according to D&D, I'm a kobold, is low, and I can't change that because it's like, we're playing a D&D game. Unfortunately, that's how it is, right? Like, my intelligence is unfortunately just she's a low intelligence creature. Sometimes there are moments where it's like, no, if that's going to be relevant for the beast or the creature, the stat doesn't matter.
Right.
And I'm always super grateful for Magic when he's like, no, you already are aware of that because you're a kobold. And I'm like, thank you. Don't make me roll on that, because
Please.
like, it doesn't
Exactly.
make sense. And like sometimes those statistics work against a really great playable character, and it's like really unfortunate when that happens. So that's really all I have to that degree, because I've never created characters, but
Yeah, I see
either one of you,
Ty
Ty's doing
clapping
like
the hands
he's doing the
thing.
I
thing,
kind of
so-
I kind of want Ty to go. I don't have a whole lot to say here just yet, so I kind of want Ty to just take it.
Listen, I don't think I really have to talk about how D&D creates creature stereotypes that need to be broken. So, I mean,
We do that
saying that
every
an entire race of humanoid creatures is exactly the same is fucking stupid.
Yep.
So why the hell would you being a kobold mean anything? So there's that. Why the hell would any kobold being a kobold mean anything, right? And props to you know what, I don't care that the words critical role seem to be some sort of like bad term to use in like smaller D&D circles, because what they do is pretty incredible. If you take a look at the entire Jorhas arc that Critical Role went through, it's all about saying, hey, these monsters that people identify with being dumb or evil or stupid are just like everyone else, if not better than humanoids. Like, and so they're, you know what, like, take it with a grain of salt when people say like, oh, you know, kobolds are stupid, blah blah blah, because like that is not what needs. That's not good. But again, talking about beasts, talking about animals, in terms of stats, D&D has a cat's intelligence as a 3.
It's like, come on.
Pretty sure cats are smarter than I am, being perfectly honest.
It's
So like
Put
I
that
don't
out there.
think we really need to. I think there's a lot of usage of stat blocks to determine a creature's ability to do things. Whereas stat blocks are meant for determining combat efficiency. And even then, most stat blocks should be changed, homebrewed, to fit the character that you are presenting to your players.
Yep.
Not the other way around. The
Mhm.
character should not be influenced by the stat block. The stat block should be influenced by the character. And I think that really needs to be thought about, because there's entire societies of kobolds and goblins and orcs and a lot of different humanoid creatures that are all treated like the exact same thing in terms of their stat blocks. And I think that's dumb.
yeah, for sure. Foxy, did you talk on this point yet?
No, I don't. No, not really. I want to tie the cook off for a little bit, so I wanted to let that happen. But I'll keep this real simplistic, and I'll hot take it real fast and get us moving. What the fuck is a stat block? Who gives a shit? I don't care. I don't care about numbers. I don't care about what the book says the intelligence of a cat is supposed to be. I don't give a fuck what the book says how much damage a cat's claws do if they attack you. I don't give a fuck what the book says I don't know, a raptor would do when it's presented with an enemy. I don't give a fuck. I'm here to tell stories. I'm not here to if you're playing D&D or any other TTRPG and you look at a bunch of numbers on a page and go, this has to be the most important thing about the decision I make here, put the book down, go play a video game. You're playing the wrong thing. Sorry. That's all I gotta say about that. You're playing the wrong thing. You're in the wrong hobby. You're playing the wrong game, and you're here for the wrong things. We don't give a fuck about numbers here. Numbers are cool. They help you bring about what you need to bring about. Nobody gives a shit about numbers here. We're here to tell stories. We're here to tell about characters and the arcs they go through. And a creature can be a character in the same way that a humanoid is. That doesn't. There's no line there. I don't know why people pretend there is. That's all I got.
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I totally believe that numbers are completely necessary. Especially for D&D, because it's like, hey, like this entire system is based around this game that we use now as a storytelling device was originally designed as a war game.
Yeah.
And there are elements for that are still incorporated, that because we are playing this game, this is how we design monsters. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think how it was originally designed, how a lot of these monsters are originally designed, their stats, intelligence ratings, wisdom ratings, charisma ratings. I think there was a lot of
I don't know.
a lot of death drifter energy built into designing some of these creatures.
Yeah, or just like it reads very much how like video game animal stats would also work too, honestly. Like it reads a lot like that. Which again, like I don't really like Derixel put in chat, and this was gonna be my example too, like ravens, corvids, they are so smart. Like they can use tools. Like they have very complex strategies to defend their nest from predators, like even to the point of acting injured. So one raven can swoop in, take some eggs, get them out, while the other one is harrying the predator or like tricking him, and then yeah, they both go off. Like that's so smart. Like that's not something that a 3 intelligence creature, whatever they end up having, is going to do. Like that, and not even just with smart by our standards, but also just smart by like evolutionary traits. Like you know, chalking intelligence up to just human standards is just really dumb in my
And
opinion.
baked into racism, by the way.
Yeah,
It's just
just
racism.
just a
That's all it
little.
is.
The point I was kind of making with this question though was talking about just like how we design or put our role playing decisions to animal traits. So kind of going back to that, my strategy at least, I usually start with the anatomy, honestly, because as biologists, we do structure determines function a lot of the time. So you can do a ton of stuff, like awesome stuff with structure. Of course, that won't determine mental traits or anything like that. But the more you know about like different evolutionary traits and adaptations to combat environmental problems, like the more crazy that blueprint can become. And I don't know, I just really like that angle for designing animals. Like there's a lot of stuff out there, you just have to look. But also, yeah, in terms of environment, the natural history is also super important.
Yeah, I mean, I have said this consistently through this whole panel is I can't say enough about magic as a DM because it's like when I built Ulta, it was not like I was like, listen, I know I'm building a kobold. Like I'm aware that this is how like but I'm going off of like all of this history stuff. Like I want this based more in this way. And it was that like that idea of okay, we know what kobolds are supposed to be. I'm deviating from that. And like the first answer was it doesn't have to be that. Kind of like what you were saying, Heck, with like you can base it off of the anatomy or like whatever. Yeah, Ulta's not super strong. Like she's 3.5 foot tall. She can't be. But like she's got a lot of wisdom. You know what I mean? Like there are different aspects to that where like when I was creating her, it was like, okay, I'm willing to forfeit charisma. She's going to be kind of rude, but she's going to have all of these other stats and these traits that are going to support her better when we're going through this campaign. So it's just an easy conversation if you know where you want to go with your character, if that's what you're doing. If you're building a playable character, I think it's different for someone like Ty who creates characters or creatures homebrewed that are like mounts or enemies or whatever. But for me, when I'm creating a playable character, and I've done it a lot, where I'm like, hey, this is the idea I'm going for, I'm going to base it off of this. What can we do with that?
For sure, for sure. But yeah, tell you what, since we have about 10 minutes left in this panel, I don't know, are there any like parting thoughts or questions in chat that we just want to talk about first before wrapping up?
If you have an animal and you don't know what its intelligence, wisdom, and charisma stats should be, make it a 10 because they are at least as intelligent, wise, and charismatic as the average human. Just saying.
Yeah. I guess just to double down on my earlier hot take, what the fuck is a number at the end of the day? It doesn't matter. Play the game how Tell a story you want to tell. Play the game the way your party, your group, and you as a storyteller feel comfortable playing it. Play the story that you want to have told. Why are you letting a book of paper that some white dude wrote tell you what to do? Sorry.
My last bit is probably going to be the same as the beginning. Is like play animals. Play animals. Play playable creatures. Check out the Humblewood content if you never have. I know there's other, like Zeke is another one who creates like kind of like amazing ecological creatures and manifestations of creatures. Like seek out things like that, because there's so much more depth in playing something that isn't just, I mean, I get that they're still humanoid, but like I've had so much more gratification playing Ulta, and I've experienced more playing Ulta. For example, Ty even said like, oh, when someone makes the sweeping comment of like, oh, kobolds are stupid. Like I had somebody in my party do that, and it was like, oh, well, now I get to like deal with the feelings of judgment from a party member. Cool, and it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, well, this adds a lot of depth and a lot of emotion because people don't think about the animals as much as they probably should. Or the creatures or whatever they're dealing with. Like it adds a level of humanity and kindness, and like, oh, let's not look at these the way that we always have. So that's why I like playing creatures like that and animals. So play animals.
Don't be afraid. Real weird shout out from Inspiration for Purple. Monster Hunter. That is actually, yeah, that is a fantastic example. There are so many different like draconic species in there that aren't exactly dragons, and just tons of stuff. Absolutely tons of stuff in there. I think, yeah, we mentioned Zeke already. Direxolith in chat is working on a Beastlings thing. There's a ton of stuff out there. Support individual creators. Support indie games. Do it. But yeah. Oh, in terms of my parting thoughts, like a lot of the stuff that we've talked about in here are, yeah, just super important. Find inspiration, whether that is from actual like text, like me with my ornithology class, or going more fantasy based. Like if you want to include something from like Lord of the Rings or anything like that, just do it. Like if you want to make giant horses from The Hobbit, just do it. The Clydesdale, do it. Just make a stat block for it. And yeah, like we said, the framework can be there, but don't be afraid to change it to what you think the standard should be. Yeah.
So, Animal Folk campaign GM'd by Sir Heckalot.
When
I have time, which is like never, because I'm going to vet school in August. But yeah. soon. Listen, if one of y'all let me play a zoologist, I'll be happy. Okay. That's it. But yeah. Also, just kind of at the end of this, even though we are obviously very passionate about this kind of thing, if you get to the point where you say, this is a magical world, so I can just do anything I want, just subvert structure and function and all of that, and not adhere as closely to biological standards, like, that's okay too, because at the end of the day, a lot of these are fantasy RPGs. So not everything has to have an explanation. I just like talking about that because of how my brain works and what I've studied for years upon years. But that's just me. But yeah, Foxy has to go to the next panel, so I guess we'll just do some outros. So let's start with Foxy real fast.
Sup, folks? It's me, Young Foxy, aka Big Foxy, aka no longer banned from Twitter, Foxy. And I am the creative director of Neon Lights Roleplay. Come find me over there. I run 2 campaigns. I handle the background work for pretty much everything else we do. I'm also on TPK every now and then whenever they find the time to throw me into some stuff like this right here. So catch me hanging out doing stuff, and it's been a great time. You guys have such great thoughts. I love talking to you all. Thank you so much for having me. That's all I gotta say.
All right, down to Chrissy.
Yeah. So again, I'm Chrissy. Social media at Chrissy Crits. You'll find me in the TPK Discord server. I'm playing in a ton of stuff. Not a ton of stuff, but a lot of stuff. We have Queen's Gambit. That's our Tyranny of Dragons, the one that I talked about for basically this whole panel. We also have the Wrath of Many, which is almost done in 2 weeks, which is wild to me that it's going to come to an end because I don't want it to end.
Right.
I'm looking at Ty directly because I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I also have City of Mist coming up. That's with Proper. It is a little bit of a film noir feel. I'm really excited about that. We've got a bunch of really cool stuff coming up. So if you're not familiar with our channel or you don't know anything about it, I'm sure someone will link our schedule and link the Discord and come find us, hang out. You'll see me around if you stick around. That's it.
All right, to Ty.
Hello, everyone. I am Tyrant. You can find me on Twitch and Twitter at Dr. Tyrant. Listen, just be kind to animals in TTRPGs, please.
Please.
As for what I have coming up, tomorrow is the season and possibly series finale of Roundhouse. It's gonna be wild. I don't know exactly what's been going on because I was not here last session.
Yeah, we were doing Wrath.
Because Wrath of the Many and prison breaks and other things. So coming into the shitstorm that I'm assuming is waiting for me tomorrow is going to be crazy, and I'm excited. Besides that, I don't have anything until Saturday. This coming up Saturday, which is the continuation of Dark Echoes, one of our Crystal Stride campaigns, GM'd by the incredible Luca Locke. We just got done with the Feast of St. Andrel, or are in the middle of the Feast of St. Andrel, and listen, it's fine. It's fine. Like we can just stay in the church and everything will be fine. No one else will die. It's okay. It's okay. After that, next Monday is the continuation of Atrium of Aquarius, an Altered Carbon campaign, which is also crazy. We just had a character die and then be resurrected, and it's just a lot, y'all. On the 21st, I will be over on Nat 20 for the second episode of Against the Tides, where I will be bringing back my good dwarf paladin play. I'm so excited. And then on the 22nd, Thursday the 22nd, will be the last episode of Wrath of the Many. It's going to be a good episode. I am going to be sad to see it done, but it'll be cool. It'll be okay. Hopefully. Listen, I've already started on the homebrew for the final boss, and it'll be fine. It's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. We're basically gods, right? We have
so
all
many
20s
feelings.
and stats. It's fine.
So many feelings.
It's fine. It's gonna be okay, I guess. Hey guys, it's me, Sir Heckelot. You can find me on all the social medias at Sir Heckelot. Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that, as well as our lovely Discord that you should definitely join, like we said. You can see me yelling about birds there almost daily. And if I actually end up going to the beach this week, you'll see me yelling about a bunch of tide pool stuff, probably. So, who wants to miss that? But yeah, in terms of where you see me around here, Queen's Gambit isn't running this week, so you won't see me this week. But yeah, you'll see me for Wrath of the Many. You'll see me in the Neon Lights roleplay campaigns I'm a part of, which is the Seven Sons that we mentioned here a couple times, as well as in His Divine Name, which is an Only War campaign. I am also on Itch. Like I said, I'm in an Ictrid Invasion supplement, which is on there, so definitely check it out if you are into Corvid Court, the game, or just really like birds. They're pretty biologically similar to the actual classes. Yeah, I think that is all I have coming up and all my plugs. I feel like there should be more, but there's not, which is weird. So yeah, I don't know, guys. So yeah, I'll probably remember something like 2 minutes from now. But yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that. Stick around for the panel in 30 minutes. There's gonna be game design and a bullet playthrough, which is gonna be really cool. You won't want to miss it. So yeah. Bye guys. Thanks for showing up. Bye.
Bye.